So thank you so much for joining us. And you know what we do on the future of work. The future of work, this is where we actually explore job opportunities and job creation opportunities also. Welcome back. Thank you so much for so much feedback that you guys gave last time. It was amazing. And today, awesome people. I'll let them introduce themselves. We have Mucha, Mlingo, and we have Jane, our usual Jane. You know, our Jane is awesome. She's not plain Jane anymore. We have Jane and we have Mucha, Mlingo. So I would like to start with a stranger to our focus today. Mucha, tafadhali, introduce yourself and just I don't want to read your bio because it might make a few people scared. So I'll let you just introduce yourself because you can do it much kindly than I would. So please go for it, ma'am.
It's great to be on with you this evening. My name is Mucha Mlingo, and I'm an emotional intelligence coach. What that means is I work with individuals, with teams and organizations, and I help them to understand how they can use emotional intelligence as a strategic resource. I'm really looking forward to having this conversation. What I know for a fact is even if you never thought emotional intelligence was important, you have, through this season of COVID, come to a realization of how important it is and how important it is to pay attention to our emotions. So I'm looking forward to this conversation that we are going to have today. Thank you so much for having me here, Waiga.
Thank you very much. Much honored to have you. Jane, tafadhali introduce yourself. I know people know you, but they keep asking me. We want to know more about Jane, how to reach her. But let's just start with your introduction, who you are and what you do. And even why you're part of the future of work. Yeah.
Okay, super. So my name is Jane Mutisya. I am the Managing Director of Career Management Center. I'm also a HR specialist. Before coming to Career Management Center, I worked as a HR specialist for different organizations. I worked for the BBC Media Action. I worked for a project of USA and Mnemonic International. I worked for International Medical Corps and several other organizations, basically managing the HR function, recruiting for organizations, managing the talent and things like that. So why are we doing the future of work? Because we would like to see as many people get jobs, because we believe that there are very many people who are not employed because maybe they just like something little, some small tweaking for them to be employable. When you have guided the right way, you can be jobless for long or maybe even not be able to pursue to the next level just because of that particular guidance. So future of work is to get us that ready for the job market, ready to move to the next level in our career, ready to be employable. So nice to be here. Back to you, Ahiga.
Thank you very much. Mucha, I think just to get into the matter of the things, oh, good. We already have 12 people on board. That's pretty good. I think they'll be joining as we continue. But Mucha, what exactly is EQ and why does it matter? But even let me shift from you first. Let me go to Jane. Jane, why does EQ matter? Like really, you're a recruiter. Why all of a sudden do you have a new component to make us not get jobs? Please explain to us.
It's actually not a new component, emotional intelligence. If you look back at the definition of emotional intelligence, it's something that we have actually always checked for. Maybe we didn't call it emotional intelligence, but I know very well that people have always been asked, are you a team player? You know, how do you resolve conflict? How do you behave when you're in difficult situations and all that? Only that more than ever, it is one of the most important skills, because there are people who have left jobs because they cope with a colleague, with a manager, and we don't fail to cope with them because they don't have that bachelor's, because they don't have that master's. It is because of the soft skills, you know, the social awareness, how they manage other people. So, you know, how empathetic they handle when you have issues. So it's about the gelling of how to build rapport with people at work for you to go to the next level. So it has always been there, but it is now more than ever very, very, very important. So I guess now Mucha can take it from there.
Yes, definitely, Mucha. Now, let's get on to you. I mean, I can see a poster behind you saying self-service leadership. Do you think we've just practiced EQ while on this show?
Thank you. I think we're doing a good job of linking and connecting with each other. You know, I really love what Jane said, that emotional intelligence isn't actually something new. It's something that has existed before. We all know individuals who are extremely successful at work, and yet when you look at their papers, they either don't have any or they have very limited papers. And it has always been a wonder, why is it that they're doing so well? And the why is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence really is about being able to tune into your emotions and to be able to navigate or manage those emotions. Why is that important, Wahiga? Because emotions drive behavior. And that's not something that is a fad, that is something that is a fact. It is biological. The emotional part of the brain, the amygdala, is the one that actually drives our behavior. So the question is, if you're not paying attention to your emotions, then how are you going to move yourself forward? We have heard it said a million times before that we must leave our emotions at the door when we go to work. But that is unrealistic because emotions are an integral part of who we are. What we should do at work is understand what those emotions are and then use that emotional information to make decisions. People who are high in emotional intelligence are more successful because, as Jane mentioned, they have those soft skills that enable them to connect with people, to build relationships. Those are the skills that are important.
Amazing, amazing. So, Jane, I would like to actually get back to you. We talk about emotional intelligence. How exactly for you in your career have you used emotional intelligence to actually guide? Let's actually start with the employers, yeah? Because that's the sure problem. I am an individual with emotional intelligence, but my employer not only doesn't know what it is, but doesn't even possess any. Please explain to us how that works.
So I would say that it's a skill that you must have, especially if you go to management and all that. And those of us who have been able to experience managers who are not emotionally intelligent, life can be very difficult. It can be extremely difficult. So in terms of experiencing and helping employers in terms of getting people who are emotionally intelligent, for us as recruiters, we start from the point of the person that we hire. Actually, for this year, actually for the last, I think 4 years or so, apart from just asking, are you a team player? How do you solve conflict and all that? No. We have a section that we asking emotional intelligent questions to make sure from the point of hire, we actually have someone who's actually good. We even go further and do a personality test to just understand your personality. And we'll be asking you questions to do with very many things in terms of how you relate your social behavior, your social intelligence, stuff like that. We go further as recruiters and do a reference check. In the reference check, you'll note we are not asking about does this person have a degree? No. We are asking about your personal attributes, the behavior that you feel at work. How did this person work under pressure? How did this person respond when they were faced with difficult situations? How was this person working in group settings? How are they doing ABCD? Things that we are calling things that are very different. We'll go further and put you on a probation period. And most people who miss probation confirmations, they don't miss because they could not do the job. We'll be talking about things like they are not communicating. They are not able to deal with the team. They are not able to perform in ABCD. So it will be around again the emotional intelligence issues about being able to just build rapport again, like I said, about to be able to navigate and be able to manage your emotions. It will be because you are given feedback and they could not take the feedback. Things they could not give feedback over themselves. So things to do with the how, not the technical bits, not the how they were doing it, but
Great.
the soft skills
Good.
of how to get the job done.
That's okay. Actually, now we come to Mucha. This is your turn to shine, ma'am. So please demystify this beast that is emotional intelligence for us. Demystify both on the side of employers and on the side of employees.
What's interesting about emotional intelligence, Wahiga, is that it is a soft skill that drives bottom line results. So for the employer, organizations that really focus on building their leaders so that they are more emotionally intelligent, this actually has bottom line results. It has bottom line impacts. Organizations where leaders are high in emotional intelligence actually generate better results as far as the financial bottom line is concerned. And so it is a soft skill that actually drives bottom line results. From the employee perspective, individuals who are high in emotional intelligence are able to actually grow in their career, going a lot further and a lot faster than those who do not have those emotional intelligence competencies. What is emotional intelligence? It's just being smart with your feelings. It's understanding that emotions are data. There are no good or bad emotions, just data. It is an insight from yourself to yourself, letting you know that there's something you need to pay attention to. Going back to the point Jane made earlier, individuals who are high in emotional intelligence understand that when a boss is giving feedback, they shouldn't take it as a personal attack. They're able to manage that emotion that rises, that makes you want to push back against the feedback, and remind themselves that any feedback is good, even if you don't necessarily agree with all of it. And so emotional intelligence is about understanding emotions are data, picking up on that data and then utilizing it. But it's also understanding that whilst emotions are data, they are not directives, which means that just because I feel a certain way, it doesn't mean that I must act that way. Anger is not bad. Sadness, not bad. Anxiety, they are not bad. They are information. The question is, what do you do with that information? And I think this is why individuals who are high in emotional intelligence are more successful. They are able to use this emotional data to make better decisions. Better decisions are made when we leverage both the rational side of the brain and the emotional side of the brain. What's interesting to note is that the emotional side of the brain is powerful enough to override rational thinking. What does that mean? Simply, that means the emotional part of a brain can cause you to do things at work that you will regret later, like shooting off an email in capital letters to your boss because of something they have sent to you in an email. Right? That is the emotional part of the brain pushing you and causing you to act out in ways that you wish you could take back. I have been the recipient of a number of emails that, were recalled. And I suspect that when people recall emails that they've sent to a group of individuals, it's because suddenly they realize that what they said may not come across very well, right? Emotional intelligence is understanding emotions are data and must pay attention to them. Because when I don't pay attention, they drive me to act in ways that I may not appreciate when I think about it and reflect on it later. And I think this is really what makes the difference between a person who thrives at work and one who struggles.
Great. So just to clarify something, and maybe it's one of the things one of us is asking. We actually have 22 viewers right now. Somebody is asking, so how exactly do I differentiate between me being emotionally intelligent and my boss not being emotionally intelligent, or vice versa? That's an employee. By the sound of it, that sounds like an employee.
How do you differentiate between you being emotionally intelligent and your boss not?
Exactly.
I think the reality is that you cannot actually control anyone else, right? So maybe, let me put it this way, and it may not be a popular response. It doesn't matter whether your boss is emotionally intelligent or not, because you can't control your boss. The question is, are you emotionally intelligent? Because that's something you have control over, right? You may be working with a boss who's not emotionally intelligent, but that means that you then need to increase your EQ so that you are better able to navigate this boss who may be a bully, who may be unfair, who may play favorites, or who may be someone who's just moody. You never really know where you stand with them. So for me, I think the answer to that question is, it doesn't really matter. You cannot really control how someone else behaves. What you can control is how you behave. And so I would say in that instance, focus should be on how can I develop my emotional intelligence so that I can better navigate dealing with this boss who is a little difficult.
Interesting. And then somebody else is also throwing in another question and asking, and maybe I should send this to Jane. I'm an African man. Emotional intelligence does not apply to me because anyway, I'm the boss. That's the statement.
That one, it means the person does not understand the definition of what you're calling emotional intelligence. Because even for an African man, we are just talking about when you have to bang doors in the office, when you have to shout in the office like Mlingo is so, Mucha is saying, you send an email and then you start recalling. That is not being an African man. The African man that I know, my grandfathers and the others, the people that will actually be able to think through their decisions before they could even call for that meeting. We would go to them because they were very wise. They had the wisdom to actually sort issues in a very fair way. So for that African man, when we talk about emotional intelligence, we are talking about not being driven by your emotions, but you being able to manage and take charge of your emotions. Yes, you're mad. Is it the best time to call for that meeting? Talk as you bang doors, or would you talk later when you are now calm and you are able to now talk about the issues that you have to talk about in a way that is more calm? The African man that has to give this negative feedback, have you thought about the effect of that particular feedback to the other person and how you can package to make it not look like a personal attack? So I don't think there's anything to do with African men and being able to be not emotionally intelligent. The African man has to be very emotionally intelligent, like they have always been. So it's not a race thing, nothing to do with the race.
Very patriarchal statement.
Oh yeah, patriarchal for sure. So it's nothing to do with men or women.
Mucha, yours? Okay, it's okay. Jane, just as we continue to the same, what do you think was there? Because now that's the one.
Who has poor network?
A situation. How would you categorize how it works? Ladies and gentlemen, it seems we have a technical issue, just a small one. But in the meantime, we are waiting for.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Great.
But I lost at some point, so I didn't hear your question.
It's okay. So let me repeat it.
I love
how
that
exactly
response,
would you
Wahiga, if I can
advise
jump.
a boss, in quotes, a boss to go about such a factor? How would you advise that? And then we'll go back to Mucha to actually tell us what she thinks about that paternalistic sentiment.
I think it's just realizing that you actually need to be emotionally intelligent. We are moving from the military style of commanding people and just saying people have to use your directives to using styles that are actually more collaborative, that make people buy into what you're saying or what you want them to do rather than directing and controlling. So if you think you have that issue, talk to Mucha. She's the emotional intelligence coach, Get a coach, have someone that actually trains you to be able to manage your emotions, to be able to know that I'm actually getting very annoyed as we speak. Can we postpone this meeting? To be able to know my boss right now is looking very, very, very annoyed. We can't have this meeting now. Just say hi, walk back, come tomorrow when you're able to discuss it. It's about something that is so furious that you can't handle now. So someone who is able to manage their emotions, it's always a plus. As we go up, your engineering skills will matter less, your accounting skills will matter less, because it's about now managing people, managing resources, managing teams. So as you go up, as you become a manager, it is not an excuse. It has to just be something that you have to continuously build and build. And just to say this, even companies are realizing this, and now we are having trainers coming to just train people on emotional intelligence. We have realized it was the missing glue that actually makes people not to stagnate. You say you are very good technically, you can only fix wires, you can only do ABCD. But if you have to go to the next level, it is not about those engineering things, not about the data, it's not about ABCD. It's about how you are able to relate to people. And therefore, you have to be socially intelligent, you have to be emotionally intelligent, just as a different one.
Mucha, let's get back to you. And sorry, let me change the conversation again into what did you think even first about that patriarchal statement?
I liked what Jane said. I hope you can hear me clearly now. I liked what Jane said in response to that question. Because what Jane said was actually the African man of yesteryear was actually emotionally intelligent. It just wasn't called that because he was able to make decisions not in the heat of the moment, but to think through what his ultimate goal is. What is the outcome that he would like to achieve? So, I concur 100% with what Jane said, that there's no male or female when it comes to EQ. EQ is important for everyone because it's about your ability to manage your emotions and your ability to work well with others. And if that's not something that's essential as someone working in an organization, then I don't really know what else would be important. So it's not about man or woman. At the end of the day, whether you are the boss or you are at the beginning of your career, your ability to manage your emotions and to interact with others. That social intelligence that Jane is talking about. Those are essential. They are far more important than everything else, including the papers you have. Just to add as well to that, there's the comment that Jane was making a little while ago. Many organizations promote individuals on the basis of their technical competency. But the challenge is, yes, you are great technically, but as Jane was saying, as you grow up the ladder, it's no longer your technical competence that is required. It is your ability to lead.
Interesting. That's a tight one. Mucha, can you hear us?
Yes.
Great. Now, still back at you. Somebody, Dan is asking, how practical is emotional intelligence? That's Daniel. Yeah, Daniel.
Daniel, thank you very much for that question. How practical is emotional intelligence? Daniel, emotional intelligence is what will stop you from sending that email in capital letters to your boss. Emotional intelligence is what will stop you from shouting at a colleague in the office when they have pushed your buttons. Emotional intelligence will stop you from moving as quickly as you would like them to. Emotional intelligence is very.
Hello, Mucha.
Actually,
we've lost you again. Hello, can you hear us?
I can hear you clearly, Waihiga.
Sorry, we've lost you again. You actually started answering Daniel and then you disappeared for a while.
I'm sorry about that. I can hear you clearly and I can see you very clearly. So that's very strange. So I'm saying emotional intelligence is very practical. It's very practical. I gave some examples. I'm not sure if you heard me when I was giving the examples.
Not
so
really.
I can give them again.
Yes, please.
Emotional intelligence is what makes the difference between you deciding to shoot that email in response to an email that's come from your boss, an email in capital letters or underlined, right? Emotional intelligence is what stops you from shouting at a colleague who has pushed your buttons. Emotional intelligence is what stops you from picking up and shaking a customer who's taking a long time to make a decision. It is completely practical because our emotions drive our behavior.
So there's actually, yes, please.
Maybe I can give you some more examples of just know that emotional intelligence is actually very practical. And I'll just use 2 examples, maybe 3. So the first one, like Mucha had said initially, was about feedback. How you give your feedback actually says whether you're emotionally intelligent or not. Because if you're not emotionally intelligent and you're a manager, you're going to give feedback and you're going to damage people completely. They will never speak in a meeting. You kill their self-esteem. That is a manager who is not emotionally intelligent. I call that manager a hailstorm. There's a manager who is very emotionally intelligent. He'll give you feedback and he's going to grow and nurture you like rainfall. You get the 2 differences?
Yes,
so one who is emotionally intelligent will actually nurture you and make you grow as a person. The opposite is also true. For an employee who is emotionally intelligent, they believe feedback makes them grow. And therefore, regardless of what the feedback is, they will seek to be able to understand, as much as this person is telling me very badly, what exactly are they saying? Is there some truth? Can I get something and develop? Other people, you give them feedback and they will go for almost even a year. They don't want to see you. They don't even talk to you just because you give them feedback. Another example is during conflict. We keep getting conflict at work, in the office, at home, and all that. People who are emotionally intelligent know conflict has to happen. It will happen at any one time when you're dealing with other people. But if you're emotionally intelligent, you aim to resolve that particular conflict. If you understand, it will be difficult, but when things have calmed down, I'll be the bigger one to go and say, I think we have a problem. What is the issue? And before you seek to keep saying you're right and fighting for your point of view, you seek to understand the other person. Where are we different? Where is our point of departure? How come we're having an issue with this? You want to understand what are they? Why is there an issue? You see it from their perspective, and that is one of the elements of the emotional intelligence. Being able to see issues from the other person's point of view. for you to be able to solve that particular conflict. When you're not emotionally intelligent, you keep insisting. No, I said ABCD and I know I am right. You have not even understood what I'm trying to say. You are listening to talk. You are waiting for your chance to speak instead of listening to understand. We keep observing that every day. So the moment you become emotionally intelligent, every time you're in conflict, you want to come and ask me, Jane, what is the issue? In your opinion, what is the issue? You understand where I'm coming from, then you agree with me and go, I agree. But what you're missing is this and this and this and this. And the moment you understand that, you become emotionally intelligent, and most of the conflicts, which I believe stem from misunderstandings, actually. Most of the guys that you don't talk to, there's nothing wrong they've done to you. Most of them is just a misunderstanding. They did something, it was ABCD, you took action, and now you guys are not talking to each other. Because maybe there's no emotional intelligence between the two of you. If you look at something,
Oh, sorry. Continue. Sorry.
So again, communication, how we communicate to people. If you're emotionally intelligent, you use your communication. Every time you open your mouth, it should be about building relationships. The moment you find that you're opening your mouth to insult other people, to ask them the thing that you're dealing with, maybe to find conflicts, to do whatever that you have to do, but to ask them the thing that they are, you're not emotionally intelligent. But if you realize that the purpose is to actually bring peace, make people be able to work together, you are now emotionally intelligent. And I'm not saying playing a diplomat or ABCD. I'm saying you understand there is importance in building relationships. There is importance in building social capital. There is importance that people come to you because they know you're going to be sober-minded to actually be able to see things as they are, not without objectivity. All that is emotional intelligence. Thank you.
Interesting. I want to go to Mucha, but there's something you usually tell me, even in our normal interactions, that IQ. It's a statement you have, very interesting statement. IQ gets you through the door.
EQ helps you keep the job. So IQ gets you the job, but to keep the job, you need EQ.
Mucha, please take it from there. I think now you can take it from there.
I just want to really agree with everything that Jane has said. And EQ will not only help you keep the job, but EQ will help you grow in your career. The difference between an individual who is able to thrive at work and one, as Jane said earlier, who's somehow stagnant is emotional intelligence. It's not the certification that you have. It's your ability to use your emotions in a positive way. I really like the examples Jane gave because they were very practical examples. When we are high in emotional intelligence, it enables us to be able to interact with others. There are very few jobs, Waihiga, that require you to work on your own. And you don't interact with anyone, you don't, work with anyone, you're not part of any team. There are very few jobs like that. Most jobs require us to interact. And at the heart of interaction is our ability to manage how we feel, to understand that it's okay to feel that way, but now what am I going to do about it? One of the other things I would add is another way that we can see emotional intelligence is very practical. Individuals who are high in emotional intelligence are able to weigh up the pros and cons when they are making decisions. So they don't just jump in, they're able to think through and ask themselves, what is the impact of this choice that I'm about to make? When I respond negatively to someone, Jane talked about, being in the office. If I respond negatively to someone, if I'm opening my mouth always to just say negative things, what is the impact? And so people who are high in emotional intelligence hold themselves to a standard where they are measuring impact of what they are saying, measuring impact of what they are doing. And I think that's one of the reasons why they are very successful.
Thank you for that, Mucha. I'm wondering, and we actually have a comment here from Jane Dongori. Jane is asking, how exactly can I evaluate my EQ?
That's a very good question, Jane. So there's three things that I would say you should look out for that will help you to determine whether you are low in emotional intelligence or whether you are on the right track as far as EQ is concerned. We never really say that you arrive when it comes to EQ because you're always growing and always developing. So the first thing is, are you aware of your feelings? Are you aware of your feelings, or do you operate autopilot? How do you know if you're aware of your feelings? Are you able to actually tell what it is you're feeling regularly on a daily basis? Are you aware that today I'm feeling sad? Or do you find that it's very hard for you to describe what you are feeling? So that's the first thing, and that speaks to self-awareness. The second thing is, do you tend to react or do you respond? Those are two very different things. Individuals who react just allow their other people to push their buttons. Someone says something, you vomited something in return. Someone does something, you're very quick to just act without actually thinking through the impact. So do you react or do you respond? People who respond actually think about what they're about to do. They think about the impact of what they're about to do. They think about how it will impact not just themselves, but how it would impact others. So the first is, are you aware of how you feel? Are you the kind of person who can tell when you're feeling low and why you are feeling low? Number two, do you just react or do you respond? The last thing that is a good indicator of whether you are high in emotional intelligence or not is, do you live in the moment or not? It may be interesting for you to know that individuals who live solely in the moment are actually pretty low in emotional intelligence, because life isn't just about the moment. Life is about tomorrow and the future. So do you live with your future in mind? That's another great indicator of how emotionally intelligent you are. So those are three ways to identify. Can you describe how you're feeling and why you're feeling that way? Do you just react or do you respond to the things that happen to you? Are you the kind of person who's always blaming life and saying it's not your fault? And lastly, do you live in the moment or do you live with the future in mind? So those are three ways to check.
Interesting. Jen, please add on something onto that statement.
There are tests that you can do. There are tests that people actually do to test their emotional intelligence because as an individual, there are some things that that maybe you have learned from living with people. Maybe you keep saying you have a temper. Maybe you keep saying you're babysitting. Maybe you have lost them in a relationship. There are tests that you can actually do online. And when you do those tests, you're able to see the areas that you're weak on. And then you can actually now go and have a plan on how to improve on those specific areas. So, and the good thing with EQ, it's not something that you're born with. You can always learn and develop, and you start catching yourself when you're actually low on your emotional intelligence. So if you just search online emotional intelligence tests, trust me, you'll find some of them are free and you're able to do and you find your score. And even from the questions that they ask you, you can actually tell, I'm guilty about this, I'm scoring 1 out of 5, I need to work on this. So yeah, go online, search for emotional intelligence test and get to do 1 or 2.
Okay, maybe I can jump in on there as well. I mean, emotional intelligence coach, we actually do facilitate EQ tests for anyone who is interested. And we have a variety of tests depending on the need. So yes, that's something we also do. I think the important thing to remember when you are assessing emotional intelligence, as Jane has rightly said, emotional intelligence is a skill. So it's not really a pass and fail, right? It's not about, oh, I scored an A or I scored a B. When we do an emotional intelligence test, you're doing it so that you can understand where you are. You're doing it to build self-awareness. So now that I know, okay, this is an area that I'm not so strong in, what can I do about it? How can I grow? How can I develop? Sometimes we approach tests with the sense that it's a pass and fail. EQ is not a pass and fail. It doesn't matter where you are on that scale. What matters is what you actually do about it. What steps you take to now actually practice and grow that skill of EQ.
Interesting. There's another question here from Kenneth. Kenneth Kamau is saying, I lead a team of 8 people. How exactly can I practice EQ with them? Because I also think majority of them don't possess the knowledge on EQ. That's to you, Mucha. I think I can throw that to you.
Wahika, so the question is, how can I practice EQ with them?
Yes, first he's asking how can I practice EQ with them, and also how can I teach them about EQ, because majority of them don't seem to have it.
All right. So I think,
So sorry, in this case, he's the leader.
yeah.
He's the one leading the team. Yeah.
All right. So let me say two things. Let me start by saying that you will be amazed that some people do have emotional intelligence. As we said when we started, I think both Jane and I, emotional intelligence is not something new. It's just that maybe you're not calling it emotional intelligence. All right. So that's the first thing I'd like to say, that you find in very many instances, people are practicing the tenets of EQ without calling it that. As a leader, I think the first way that you can demonstrate emotional intelligence, and let me say this, leaders, in order to teach emotional intelligence, must practice it first. There is no way you can teach something that you are not doing. So for all leaders, I would say the first way to teach your team is to actually demonstrate it yourself. So how can you demonstrate EQ as a leader? The first thing, Jane talked about this, is something called empathy, putting yourself in the other person's shoes. Individuals who are high in emotional intelligence are empathetic. They understand that people are humans, and because they are humans, they have reasons for a lot of the things they do. And so as a leader, before you act, before you speak, before you punish, think about the individual as a person and ask yourself, what is their perspective? Where are they coming from? Could there be a reason why this is actually happening? So I think the first thing a leader can do is to practice what we call empathy, putting yourself in the shoes of your team so that you can truly understand them and understand where they're coming from. When we are more human with our team, you will be amazed at how it actually drives loyalty. A lot of times we think that being slave drivers will actually get us more results. But research shows that when we see people as human and we appreciate them as human and we treat them as human by practicing empathy, we actually get better results. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you need to understand that emotions are contagious as a leader. So however you are feeling, it spills over into your team. So you need to ask yourself, what is the emotional temperature that I'm bringing to the team? Are you the kind of leader where you arrive and suddenly everyone wants to leave the office? They all remember they have meetings elsewhere. What kind of emotional temperature are you bringing to the team? When you are around, what does that do to the team? Because emotions are contagious. When leaders come in and they are in a bad mood, it actually impacts the team and it impacts productivity. The third thing I would say, another way a leader can start to practice emotional intelligence is to build trust. How do you build trust? Do what you have promised to do. Stick to your word. Walk the talk. Don't be the kind of leader who says one thing, but your actions are different. Be the kind of leader that we feel this person is consistent and what they say they will do, they will always do. Don't promise things that you cannot deliver on, because every time you do that, you erode on the trust. And research shows that trust, my trust as an employee for you, the leader, trust that I have for the organization as a whole is actually the largest driver of performance. So I think those are the quick things I would say as a leader. Number one, empathy. Build on making sure that you understand your people, understand where they're coming from, connect with them. Number two, I mentioned the fact that your emotions are contagious. So be aware of your emotions. And then lastly, I said, focus on building trust. Be the person who does what they say they will do. Don't have a double standard. Don't tell your team that, it's really important to be ethical, and then you show unethical practices. That erodes trust. Don't tell your team that, timekeeping is very important, but you're late all the time for team meetings. That erodes trust. So build on the trust with the team. I think those are the three things I would quickly say.
Thank you so much for that. Somebody's actually sent in another statement. Roslyn. Thank you, Roslyn, for tuning in. Thank you so much. She's saying, I love that. What emotional temperature are you bringing to the team? Additionally to that, she says, I totally agree. Emotions are contagious and empathy is key. It seems, hey, you have fans, Mucha. I can see they're saying you're profound. And that's good. So let me just repeat what you've said. One, practice empathy. Two, emotions are contagious. What is the emotional temperature you bring to the team? And three, which is last but not least, build and keep the trust. Yes, Jane, to you, I mean, is emotional intelligence important to the people looking for a job or the people who have the job?
I'll first go pick something from where Mucha has led, and I respond to your question.
That's okay.
The manager who wants to know how they can actually be emotional intelligence and train their team to also be emotionally intelligent. And I keep saying you have all head managers, so always look at that particular person, that particular manager that you have always looked up to, because you like them so much. What else? What exactly did you like about them? Because I'm very sure it was not about the work. Work is always a minimum. So always look, how are they giving you feedback? How are they communicating when they are sad? How are they doing their things? So look at that person and be able to look even how they communicate when you've done something wrong. Were they making you feel small? Were they a coach and mentor? Or were they the kind of person that will actually beat you when you're already down? Look at the person that you also didn't like at all. The kind of, they were able to deliver their A game. That's why they have gone to the level of a manager or a CEO or whatever they are. But look at the things that you didn't like about them and don't do any of those things. The team that you're managing, don't do those things, because we keep seeing people who we didn't like about them. But when you go to a manager or whichever other level, we start practicing the things that we didn't like that people are doing to us. So for someone who is emotionally intelligent, the first thing that you do is be able to learn from the experiences that you've had in your career growth. And now back to your question, Wahiga, of is it the employer or the one looking for the job? Who should be emotionally intelligent? I think it's important for both. Was that the question?
Yes, it's okay.
Yeah, it's important for both the employer, because for the employer, I'm assuming a company or an individual like myself or Mucha, it's important because you want to reduce conflict at the workplace. When people can't communicate when they are not aware of their emotions, when you have emotions, to some of their emotions here, it means things are not good. You know what I mean? So as an employer, you want your workplace to have the least, amount of conflict. And when there is conflict, you want it to be resolved properly. You want people to be happy at work. If you can't manage your emotions, you cannot be happy at work. As a job seeker, I want to also be happy at work. But the workplace is made for all of us, is made by all of us. Jane brings her emotions, Mucha brings hers, Wahiga brings her his. We all come and meet there with the different emotions that you're bringing. So if that is not managed properly, then you cannot have what you're looking for as an employer, the happy workplace. As a job seeker, if I can't find that because the emotions are not properly managed, I start looking elsewhere. So all of us need to be emotionally intelligent, and we need to work in emotionally intelligent organizations.
Interesting.
So
Mucha, I think, thank you so much. Mucha, I think I'll throw the same question to you. I'm an employer, I'm an employee, doesn't really matter. But being both, do I really need the emotional intelligence because I'm one of either?
As an employer, you need emotional intelligence. Wahiga, remember what I said earlier. Emotional intelligence drives bottom line results. What we know from our research is that employees are more productive when they are in a space that is conducive, right? When they are in a space that is conducive, employees are actually more productive. You get more out of people when they feel they are in a safe space.
Okay.
We have moved away, and Jane talked about this earlier, from this leading by Kiboko, leading from that I am the boss, I have said you must do. Leaders who try and lead that way are really struggling because the employee of today does not respond to that kind of leadership.
Interesting.
And in the past, what would happen is you would keep having a lot of people leaving your team if you're that kind of leader, right? So people would leave your team and the company would just replace them. But more and more, companies will start replacing you as the leader because it no longer makes sense for them to keep allowing people to leave your team and having to replace the people in your team. It actually becomes more cost effective for them to get rid of you. You know, back in the day, we always felt that leaders, you will never go anywhere because you're the boss now. But actually, when organizations look at it and they look at the numbers of people that are coming in and going out, that revolving door in your department, in the end, you will be the one who goes. So for the employer and for the leaders, emotional intelligence, Wahiga, it is the most important skill today in the workplace today. You may not call it emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence may sound like this scientific term that is very impractical, but the reality is leaders who are successful today are successful not because they are using that old school, I am the boss, I am in charge. What they are doing is they are connecting with their teams. They are getting buy-in from their teams. They are inspiring and motivating their teams. They are making sure their teams understand the organization vision, the team's vision. Those are the kind of people who are successful. And that, all that I've just described is emotional intelligence. For the individual, from the perspective of the individual, emotional intelligence is more important now than any other time. Jane talked about it. I mean, Jane is in the recruitment space. She's telling you that people are doing assessments now to determine who you are, to determine what makes you tick. And you know what? I want to just say that, yes, it's true, your papers will get you the job, but it's actually not your papers alone. It's your papers and some element of how you show up. And then once you're in, I can assure you, you will thrive when you are the kind of person who is able to interact with others. As we move more and more into this world that has technology and the technological advancements, as we progress in this fourth industrial revolution, what will make you successful in work is what makes you different, is how you are different from machines. What makes you successful at work is your differentiator from the machines. Now, the difference between machines. Is it not emotion?
Mucha, we lost you a bit. Yeah, it's actually good. Sorry, we had lost you a bit there, but you've made your point clear that what makes you difference between a machine is EQ, actually, right?
Maybe I can add
Yeah,
a bit
that's exactly.
Maybe just to add a bit on what Mucha is saying, people leaving and now we are replacing the managers. Every
Yes,
time
please.
an employee leaves from your team, they'll come and do an exit interview, and part of the things that we say is not because they're not being fired. These are good employees that actually why he's leaving, and we're asking them, why are you leaving? And they'll be
Yes.
quoting things to do with emotional. How they were treated, how when they were eventually they were handled, you know, all that. So just to echo what Mucha is saying, if people keep quoting that they're leaving your department because of your management style, of course there will be nature, we take you to school, take you to Mucha, you learn about emotional intelligence. But if that doesn't work now, after that now there's no option. You have to be the one that is leaving after you have tried everything to save the department.
Interesting. Wow, the questions are coming in quick and very interesting questions, I must admit. Let me start with Rosalind, who's asking, how do you engage a hostile employee in trying to resolve conflicts? I think either of you could take that.
You want to go first or I go, Mucha? Okay.
Go ahead, James. Go ahead. Go ahead.
In conflict resolution, in conflict, especially if you're the manager, you have to actually see conflict as it's a way of life.
Yes.
People have to have conflict as long as even in the family setup, we always have conflict. But if you approach with coming to show them that you're the manager and you have to win and you know what is happening, and you don't seek to understand where they're coming from, like at any one time when there's conflict, just know there's their story, and there's the truth. And your purpose in that particular sitting is actually find the truth to understand where your point of departure is. So at any one time, go with a win-win focus in mind. Seek to understand how they are seeing the issue. In your opinion, where is the problem? Where is it not working? Then get to listen and don't listen to talk. Get to hear where that is coming from. You are saying they are the problem. Give them that chance first. And don't judge them. They are talking, you keep interjecting because you want to show them how wrong they are. It will get out of hand. So get first of all to hear where they're coming from. Then you can now ask questions. Don't even give statements. Ask questions to fully understand the whole situation, and then now from there, tell them that you always work with them, and therefore it is best if you move to a situation about even tomorrow you can work together. Move them from feeling like you're competing to see who is right, to them knowing they really want to get a resolution for that particular problem.
Interesting.
I love that. I love that. I can add, so there's something called radical respect, which is a concept that I first heard from Joshua Friedman, the CEO of 6 Seconds, the global network that I'm part of. Radical respect is the idea that you look at someone who you are in conflict with and remind yourself that they actually could be right. Remind yourself that they actually could be right. Do you know, you will be amazed at how that can shift the conversation. Because the challenge is a lot of times when we are in conflict, we approach it from an antagonistic perspective. As Jane said, one is right, one is wrong. So what could happen if you actually approach the conversation from the point of view that they actually could be right, that what they are saying could be valid? And remember, when you're having a conversation with someone, you're looking, or when you're having conflict with someone, you're looking at possibly the same scenario from totally different perspectives, which means it is possible that both of you are right. That shifts your entire approach, because now you are giving credence to what they are saying. And already that helps you to kind of come down from your soapbox and stop making this about who is right and who is wrong, but about finding mutual ground. I think that's really important. How do we find mutual ground and ultimately determine a win-win scenario?
Amazing, amazing. So Mucha, I think maybe, wow, somebody has brought in a very interesting question. I think I'll still say the name, Luther. He's called Luther. Luther S. Luther S is asking, so if EQ makes you that great, Hitler was a leader with many followers. Did he have EQ?
I guess the question is, do you think Hitler was great?
That's a good question.
I throw that back at Luther. Is Hitler someone that, because just being followed doesn't actually mean that you're a good leader, right? There are leaders who have had followers and they've told their followers to drink poison. I mean, just because you have followers, that the definition of greatness for me isn't really the followers you have. So maybe the question I would ask is, was Hitler great? And I think that one is one that each individual can mull over for themselves and determine whether he really had leadership. Yeah, I think that's the answer I would give. Just because you have followers,
okay,
you're a great leader.
But also maybe to add on to that, before we come to you, Jane, I think still at Mucha, I wonder, do you think Hitler had EQ? Or any other dictator, I guess, but that's even beyond the dictatorship. Do you think they have EQ? Can EQ be used for bad, actually? Because maybe that's also the question. Can EQ be used for bad?
I think that the phrase emotional intelligence and dictatorship cannot be in the same sentence. Because at the heart of emotional intelligence is getting people in, getting people involved, working with people, right? The minute that you are a dictator, the minute that you don't entertain others, the minute that you feel that one way is the right way, you are already moving away from emotional intelligence. I think that's what I would say. The minute that you think that only one way is right, if you look at Hitler and what he believed that only one type of person was right? And only one type of person was valid. I think that I don't believe you can be emotionally intelligent and have that point of view. I may feel that, I don't necessarily agree with you, Aiga, on a particular point. That's fine. We can disagree. But it doesn't mean then that I am right and you are wrong. It means that we are different and we have different opinions. I think the minute as a leader, you are not open to different, you are not open to people with different opinions, different, different perspectives, The minute you are lacking in empathy, which means you're not able to connect with someone, especially someone who is different to you, I think you have no EQ. Because empathy and inclusivity are at the core of emotional intelligence, and the ability to really promote diversity. I think that is at the core of EQ.
Interesting. Thank you so much for that. And actually, a comment from Caroline Katha. She says, "What makes you different from a machine is EQ." That's very profound. She agrees to that. Rosalind, I hope we answered your question about engaging a hostile employee in trying to solve conflict. Jane, you actually wanted to add something on the question. I hope not because of Hitler, but okay, please. It's okay. Add on to that.
What I wanted to say is, to his team probably was very emotional intelligent. So people following you, it means you are able to, if they are not following you by coercion, it means you're able to motivate them, you're able to talk to their hearts, you're able to inspire them and lead them. Only that you're taking them to the wrong direction. So it's what we say, Osama was a hero to some, and a terrorist to others. You know what I mean? So it's about the people that we're talking about. To his followers, if he was using all good leadership skills to manage them, then they would describe him as a very good leader. To those who have been oppressed, then he will not be a good leader because he wasn't now, he was driving the wrong emotions. So I think it depends with from what side are you seeing it from?
The perspective.
The perspective of where you're seeing it from.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. Wow. Okay, let me address these questions before we wrap up. Ladies and gentlemen, we're actually about to wrap up with we're actually at 5:59 p.m. and we're about to finish this, come to the end of it all. Lauren Odero, I see you have a question you're asking. Just wondering, how important is self-expression and assertiveness when it comes to EQ, and how can I manage it without feeling vulnerable? I can throw that to Mucha.
I think self-expression is very important. It's interesting because a lot of times when I talk about emotional intelligence, the question comes, is emotional intelligence being soft? Is emotional intelligence not saying anything because you're concerned that you may hurt the feelings of someone else? Self-expression is important. Emotional intelligence isn't being soft. It's about the how. The issue isn't not expressing yourself. The issue is, how do you express yourself? That's where emotional intelligence makes the difference. If, Wahiga, I need to deal with a colleague or a subordinate who's not pulling their weight, it's the how that matters. Emotional intelligence doesn't mean then that I don't say anything because I might hurt their feelings. No, it's I will tackle the issue, but I will remind myself that the problem is the problem, the person is not the problem. So I think self-expression is extremely important. It is important to be assertive. It doesn't mean if you're emotionally intelligent, you are not assertive, you don't stand up for yourself. The question is how you do it. That really is what makes the difference. And let me say this. I feel that you are stronger when you are able to respond instead of react. When someone pushes my buttons and I just shout or, react, very angrily to that, it's not strength. Strength is being able to hold myself back, take a deep breath, and then express the fact that I'm unhappy with how they have treated me. That is what strength is. So I think the key is, Laureen, the key is the how. It's not that when you're emotionally intelligent, you don't stand up for yourself, you don't assert yourself. It's just how you do it. That's important.
Amazing. We go back. Good. Another question still from Rosalind. She's asking, are narcissists emotionally unintelligent, given they lack empathy?
I would say that if you have no empathy, then, empathy is quite a key part of emotional intelligence. Remember, emotional intelligence is being aware of your emotions, understanding those emotions, understanding why you feel that way. And it's about being able to understand the emotions of others. And I think all of those things I've just said, narcissists don't really have that. Right? They're not aware. I mean, narcissists are not even aware of their own emotions, to be honest. and they are definitely not aware of the emotions of others. So I would say that they are low in empathy, low in emotional intelligence. Sorry.
Okay, it's okay, it's okay. Jane, maybe to bring it back to you, what do you think about narcissistic personalities in terms of employers? Hello? Hello, Jane, we can't hear you.
Sorry, I was muted. Sorry, yeah. So I'm just going to take it a bit back on the assertive communicator. And when we talk about assertive communication, there's a key. We start from people who are passive to people who are assertive, coming to people who are now aggressive. So if you are on the passive side, you are not emotionally intelligent. People are working on you and you are piling up emotions, and one day you just going to have an outburst because you are not expressing yourself. If you are assertive, you are on the right place. You are able to say what you want to say in a very respectful way, communicating what you feel and how you want to be treated and how you want things to work in a very, very respectful way. Then the extreme of it is aggressive. So you're either passive, assertive, or aggressive. Aggressive people are people who are almost violent. You are shouting, you're banging things, you're not insulting people. So always we should all of us aim to actually be at the assertive point. So being on the extreme, whether you're very passive, you're not saying what you have to say, or you're aggressive, it actually means you're not emotionally intelligent. You have some work to do. So every time you find yourself not saying what you have to say, you're not confident enough to actually say what you want to say. No, you have work in terms of emotional intelligence. Every time you find that whatever you say is upsetting the whole team because you're saying it's a lot of aggression and you have to keep apologizing for things that you have done, again, we have work to do for you in terms of coming back to being assertive. So being assertive, Lorraine, is a good thing, and you must all aim to actually go to that level of being very, very, very assertive. What was the question, Wahiga?
Just actually asking about narcissism, narcissistic tendencies.
Anybody who doesn't have empathy, you're not emotionally intelligent.
Exactly, yeah, and especially when it comes to employers.
Everywhere,
and how do you
everywhere on earth, anywhere, not just in the workplace. Because like I keep saying, emotional intelligence is not about work. It's about our life, and we cannot keep separating life at home and life at work and life at ABCD. Life is life, and our life is just one piece of life. Only that we're in different venues and different destinations. So if you don't have empathy, you're not able to understand other people. It's always about you, and getting your way and only your way. Then we have a lot of work. We have a lot of work to bring you to a level whereby you're able to live with other people and know that it's about coexisting and making life better for everybody.
Interesting. Mucha, you were laughing about something. Would you like to share it with us?
No, I was just agreeing with what Dane said. I love what she just said. Yes.
Okay,
when life is just about you're not emotionally intelligent. Definitely.
We have another question from Mutisya Sylvia. Thank you for joining us actually today. She's asking, and funny thing is, many leaders are actually narcissistic. Why is it so?
I think we're coming out of an era where leadership was really about stamping your authority and being the one who was in the know, being the one who always had the answers, being the leader of the show. That is the era we've come out of. And so that era was probably very suited to people with narcissistic tendencies. The challenge is we are moving out of that era. Those are dinosaurs who are really on their way out. They're really on their way out because, and remember, at the end of the day, as a leader, the goal is for you to drive performance and meet results that are expected of you. More and more, you are really going to struggle to work with people if you are a narcissist. If you have that approach that Jane talks about, where everything is about me, I have all the answers, I am always right, no one else can contribute, you're going to struggle to lead a successful team, at least sustainably. You're going to struggle. And eventually, you will find yourself on the way out. Right now, you're probably clinging to power that way, and the organization, if you're working in an organization, continues to hire more people who come into your department, and then before long, Jane is doing that outplacement interview with them, and then they hire someone else. Before long, Jane is called back again. At some point, the organization will realize the problem isn't the people. The problem is you. So I think the challenge is we are shifting in terms of how we lead and how successful leaders lead. In Africa, we tend to always be a little behind the curve in Africa, right? So we still have some of these dinosaurs who have the corner office and believe that as the leader, when I say jump, you should just say how high. But that kind of leadership, that kind of leadership, it's on its way out.
People keep voting with their feet. People keep walking away. People keep resisting you because, we can only take so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow, that's pretty deep. We have a question again, still from Mucha Sylvia. It's very interesting. It's actually women more concerned about EQ than men. The comments I'm seeing, there are more women than men, which is still okay. And Mucha Sylvia is still asking question: does meditation help in EQ?
So one of the things that I had wanted to share is maybe some practical tips on how to practice EQ for your benefit at work. And actually, one of those tips is to develop greater self-awareness. Self-awareness is about being introspective. And meditation does help because it helps you to just really reflect. When we are high in self-awareness, we become more emotionally intelligent because self-awareness is about knowing what you're feeling and why you're feeling that way. In the example she shared earlier, Jane talked about, the scale when it comes to being assertive, being on one end as aggressive, being on the other end as passive. And when you are passive, or when you're the kind of person who just pushes down your emotions and doesn't pay attention to them, you never speak when you should because you feel like you shouldn't, right? What happens is, and Jane described it, you will get to a point where you will just explode because it is not sustainable to suppress your emotions. And so meditation helps because it helps us to just reflect, and we can get into the habit of reflecting on how you're feeling, why you're feeling that way. So this helps in developing greater self-awareness. Yes. So I would say it definitely does help. We have a tendency, and I think this is something that we do, especially as Africans, because we never really grew up in homes where we were taught that our emotions are important. As a matter of fact, growing up, your emotions were irrelevant. We have a tendency, therefore, to suppress how we feel. Or if we are not suppressing it, we have a tendency to just throw it out there. So we are one extreme to the other, rather than finding out or understanding or digging deeper to know. How many people can honestly say that they really do know themselves? They know all their triggers. They know why they feel the way they do. Going down deep to your core. Very few of us actually spend time understanding ourselves. And yet, self-awareness is a superpower. The more I understand self, the more successful I will be. Because I'm able, if I know what my triggers are, to avoid them when I see them coming, right? Rather than just landing and just colliding with them. When I'm self-aware, I know when I'm feeling emotionally unstable. And so when I'm feeling emotionally unstable, I'm going to take the steps necessary to bring myself into balance. When I'm self-aware, I know when something someone has said is starting to affect me. And I know maybe I should go out and take a walk so that I can cool down, rather than continuing in that conversation and getting to the point where we are now exchanging words. So self-awareness is a superpower, and developing it requires being able to reflect and think about how you're feeling, why you're feeling that way, what your triggers are, and things like that. So meditation definitely helps.
Okay, so you've talked about some practical tips to actually practicing EQ. You've talked about developing self-awareness. Is there another one?
Yes, so I will share 3 tips, Wahiga, as we wind down. 3 tips. Number 1 is spend at least 10 minutes every day in self-reflection. Ask yourself, what was my emotional high? What was my emotional low? For my emotional lows, what caused those lows? And what happens when you spend 10 minutes, all you need is 10, every single day, is you begin to understand the patterns that exist. You begin to understand what some of your triggers are. So that's the first thing. Really spend some time self-reflecting. The second tip I would say is practice to pause. Practice to pause. There is very few instances in life, very few instances at work that require an immediate response. Juanita, I'm going to say that one more time. There are very few instances in life, very few instances at work that require an immediate response. We have believed a lie that strength is responding immediately. It's not true. Take a pause. Count to 10. Reflect on the scenario and ask yourself, what do I really want? Focus on your long-term goal rather than short-term satisfaction. The thing about emotions is emotions are like a spotlight. They are highlighting attention on a particular situation. And sometimes that pushes us to deal with it immediately. What we need to learn to do is to take a pause and ask yourself, is it really necessary to deal with this immediately? Is it really necessary to answer this email right now? Is it really necessary to answer this individual right now? And you will find that when you take a pause, that you are able to be more measured. And it is, I think, strength to be able to count to 10 and then turn around and tell someone that you don't appreciate the way they are disrespecting you than just shouting it out immediately. There is more strength in being measured. Tip number 3, practice gratitude. Practice gratitude at work. We often focus on all the things that we don't like about our jobs. But the challenge with that is that puts us in a downward spiral. My tip is this: every Monday, as you start your week, ask yourself what 3 things you are grateful for at your work. What 3 things are you grateful for at work? You will be amazed at how that will actually impact your psyche. And it will make you start enjoying certain things at work. Many psychological studies prove that the power of gratitude, or many psychological studies prove that individuals who practice gratitude have better moods, they are more productive, and they have better relationships. So those are the 3 tips that I would share.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Jane, let's come to you as we're winding up. Sorry, you're on mute. You're still on mute.
I'll just pick
okay.
from something that Mucha has mentioned, which is
Yes,
about there's no urgency in response whatever that you have to respond to. And maybe try to whatever someone has asked about the practicality of emotional intelligence. In terms of urgency, you must be intelligent enough to know when to de-escalate a conversation, be it verbal or be it on email. If you're doing that, you're having a conversation, you feel like this is now getting out of hand, be able to de-escalate that conversation. Call it off, pick it from tomorrow when both of you are relaxed. That shows you're actually emotionally intelligent. If it's an email conversation and you feel like for sure, this is getting out of hand, again, be able to de-escalate that particular, don't respond. Work to the person, know when to pick a phone and discuss the whatever that you have to discuss, and know when to do an email. There are times that people keep exchanging and things just get out of hand completely. Again, showing that both of you are not emotionally intelligent. And don't always look for your boss to be the one that is giving you the emotional intelligence. No. It could even be that your boss will never be emotional intelligent. And your own emotional intelligence does not depend on what your boss has. So if you think you're more emotional intelligent, be the person that is able to actually be able to manage that particular relationship. And in emotional intelligence, we also talk about being able to know the emotions about other people, not just your own emotions, but awareness of other people's emotions. So if your boss is that kind of person, then let him not drive you to madness. Just every time you say that my boss is ABCD, my boss is ABCD, until you lose yourself in what is making you react. And it may sound like it is not practical, but it's actually practical. The moment you start saying that I'm not going to make him control the way I feel, it actually works for you. And just to pick on gratitude, I have seen people quit jobs because they are focused on becoming too negative. Everything, there's nothing good happening for them at work or whatever that it is. And the moment they quit, in a week's time, they regret. They start saying, I should have done ABCD, I should have done ABCD. They even quit because they are comparing their salary with the other person. And just because of that comparison, they choose to quit. They forget even the day they got that job, they could jump, even 100 meters up because they're very happy. So being gratitude is one of the aspects that really helps you manage your own emotions, because then when you focus on what is not working, and that is the easiest route to take, things become very tough. And maybe just to conclude, the people you see at work that are very calm and collected, the ones that are never involved in any issue and ABCD, and for some reason everybody seems to also like them and they also perform, it is not because they're robots. No. They have just learned the art of being emotionally intelligent. They know they don't have to have their emotions disrupt the workplace and make everybody go like, hey, did you see that? Did you see what was happening? Today we had to, all that. So just learn to actually use your emotions to make things better, but not to worsen things, wherever that you might be it at home, be it at work. You don't have to have a separation of those two, and don't be told to leave emotions at work. When you can't manage your emotions at home, they follow you at work. You're the same human being. I don't think it's possible to always say that we can leave emotions at work. People will be finding that today you're very irritable, you're very, anything small is making you very rattled and all that, because you're not able to separate those two. So manage your emotions. If you have conflicts, resolve it. Stop putting it under the carpet, because other things are going to come up because you have not managed that very well. Back to you, Wahiga.
Good. Actually,
Wahiga, I have to jump in. Wahiga, I'll have to jump in.
It's okay.
I love what Jane just said. I love what Jane just said. If you don't manage your emotions at home, they'll follow you to work. Jane, can you just say that again? I think that is so profound. That is so profound. You cannot possibly leave your emotions at the door, because emotions are an integral part of who you are. Remember what I said when we started. Emotions are biological. Even those men who feel that I'm not driven by my emotions, it's not true. Emotions are biological. Emotions are at the heart of your behavior. So I really love that point. I really love that point, Jane.
Okay, Jane, it seems now you also have a fan, so that's a good thing.
I'm almost getting this emotional intelligence from Mucha here,
Actually, last question from what's her name? Last question from Lauren. She actually says, how possible is it for a short-tempered individual to control their emotions? That's question one. And can we get some practical tips on how to go about the same? I think the second part you had already sorted, Mucha. So I think we'll just stick to how possible is it for a short-tempered individual to control their emotions. Let's start with Jane, and then we can also finish with one last word after that. We'll start with you, Jane, and then Mucha.
Okay. In terms, I'm happy that you didn't know that you have a short temper, because that's self-awareness.
She didn't say it's her. She didn't say it's
Whoever that is, if this person has a short temper and they didn't know that they have a short temper, that's actually a very big component of emotional intelligence, just being self-aware. Because when you're not aware that you have a temper, then you keep messing up with it. So even apart from anger, any other thing that you feel you're struggling with, as long as you're self-aware, now you have conquered the first mountain. Now, every time you think you're actually now getting to get worked up and ABCD, be the guy that is escalating that conversation. Be the guy that is saying, you know what? If we handle this now, it will not end well. Can we talk about this tomorrow? Can we handle this later? Be able to manage that particular. And we have tips on anger management, which people talk about, even wearing a band and counting up to 10 as you breathe and all that. But the most important thing for me, I keep saying, know when to de-escalate. Don't do things when you're annoyed, because someone said if it's a conversation, you give your best speech. If it's because it will be so bad, you know what I mean? You might lose contacts and say things that you can never take back. And remember what they tell us. People remember what you make them feel, and you can never take words back. So the moment you call me something or say something that makes me or a team member feel very bad, it doesn't matter how you apologize. You have said it. I can always say I've forgiven you, but I'll always tell people I will never forget what that guy told me. I will never forget that he made me feel so small. So I am happy that person's already at a point of being self-aware. And therefore now the remaining bit is about them knowing that they don't have to act when they have that particular anger. And I also think it's something that people can work on. There's a belief that people have short tempers and all that. If you're aware, please, it's doable. Work on solving it. Maybe Mucha has a different medicine for that.
Mucha to you.
It's not really different medicine. I think it's more along the lines of what you've said. I think the first thing is, yes, one of the hardest parts is actually understanding what your emotional triggers are. So knowing that you have a short fuse, that's the first step. The way the brain is wired, responses that we make, they form patterns. It's like when you go to Karura Forest, for example, there are some paths in the forest that are clearly marked, and there are some paths that are a little hard to see. The ones that are clearly marked because it means someone has walked there over and over. The more you walk over the path, the clearer the path is. It's the same way in the brain. The more you respond, the more you react in a certain way, the more you strengthen that neural pathway. So when we have behaviors that we want to change, we have to create new neural pathways. So what you need to do is you need to reteach your brain how to deal with a particular situation. And what happens is the first time you do it, it's hard. The second time you do it, it's hard. But the more you do it, it's like walking on that path and strengthening that pathway. And before you know it, you have moved from being someone who, the minute someone pushes your buttons, you just shoot up, to someone who actually can just smile and move on. So I think it's important to understand that our emotions are not directives. Our emotions are not directives. Just because I feel a certain way, it doesn't mean I have to act out on that feeling. I can make the choice, as Jane keeps saying, to de-escalate. The key is you are unlikely to de-escalate in the moment. So it means that you have to start practicing ways of de-escalating in advance. You need to teach your brain in advance alternative responses, so that when you are in the moment, the brain thinks, okay, I have this option or that option. So in the moment, the brain will default. But what you want to do in advance is teach yourself. You know what? Counting to 10 may sound really silly, but it's also biological. When you count to 10, what happens is you allow the intense emotions that you are feeling to actually dissipate. And the rational part of the brain is able to come in and help you to do things that make sense. So just count to 10. Walk around with a bottle of water. Every time you are water enough. And as you swallow, you are giving yourself time to calm down. And then you're able to respond rather than react. So there are very many little tips and hacks that you can utilize in order to choose differently. The power is in your hands. There is no one who can say, I am at the mercy of my emotions. The power is in our hands.
That's not an excuse. Okay, Jane, I think we come back to your last statement as we wrap up. We are 4 minutes to go and we'll be done with this. But still, guys, ladies and gentlemen, you can still look out for Jane on LinkedIn as Jane Mutisya, or you can also look for Mucha on LinkedIn as Mucha Mlingo, or any other means that you can get them. Instagram, Twitter, they're still on. At least they're that savvy. So you can still look for them while at it. So Jane, let's go to you. Your last statement to closing our show today.
Just to say that emotional intelligence is no longer an option. If you want to succeed, not just at work, but in life, it's one of those things that you actually have to invest in. It is doable. It is something that people learn, and you can strengthen your skills. And therefore, let's purpose to actually be emotional intelligence. And I know there are very many people who try to practice this because it sounds sometimes very theoretical. But if you just, yeah, it's true, because some people get stuck at the definitions. But I like how you have broken it down today.
Yeah.
If you get stuck at the 4 definitions of what that is, then you keep saying it is not possible to actually implement it. But if you go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and maybe even invest in a coach, you're able to see the benefits of emotional intelligence in a way that you realize it is old than we only didn't have a name for it in terms of calling it emotional intelligence. But it is one of the things that has always actually been there, and it has been a differentiator in very, very, very many things. So to succeed, you need it. In the workplace, like I said when we were beginning, IQ will get you through the door. Emotional intelligence will keep you in the house and up the career ladder.
Ah,
As you go up, it's about the soft skills. It's about being intelligent in terms of how you inspire your teams, lead a team, solve issues, and be just to have people working because they feel like you're a good leader. It will never be about your technical skills. It will never be about your first degree, your second degree. It will be about the issues that make teams gel together and work together and all that, building rapport and connections and all that. And
amazing.
that works not just at work, but at home and your other relations. So invest in emotional intelligence, you will reap very, very, very good benefits.
Mucha, to you.
I just want to concur with Jane. I think that this season of COVID has really showed us that emotional intelligence is no longer it's not a nice to have. It is a must have if you are to be successful, both at work and in life. It is an absolute must have. It is an absolute essential skill for your success. I I think that individuals who feel that they are not sure how emotionally intelligent they are, I've shared a link and it's been shared with you all. Download, there's
Sorry, Mucha.
successful at work. Um, as we navigate into life after COVID, whatever that looks like, as we navigate into life after COVID, whatever that looks like, we are going to need emotional intelligence more.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. I think, ladies and gentlemen, we'll come to the end of the show. With that, I think everybody has heard what it is about. And thank you so much. This is the future of work. We appreciate having all of you on board. Uh, I'm already breathless from all the insights that's been shared today. Please, you can join us, and next time we're always on Facebook Live, on YouTube Live, and Twitter Live. You can get us any other moment. The show is always uploaded, and it's still there for future reference. Thank you so much. We'll be having a paid course for the same emotional intelligence in a few days or weeks. We'll get back to you on that. But thank you so much for joining us. This is the future of work, where we explore opportunities for job creation and also job opportunities. But Sheba Mushiri, we hear you on that. So much background noise. I think it has been sorted at the end of the show, but at least we hope next time it will also be better. But thank you for joining us also. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It has been a good evening, and I wish you all a good evening from now henceforth. Thank you so much. My name is Wahiga Kemuturi, and it's been a pleasure hosting you. Let us hear more insights as we continue. All right, have a good evening.